I've always been fascinated with memory. So much so that when I have a chance to be by myself and I have the chance just to think about things, whatever they happen to be, I enjoy combing through my life, trying to discover new memories that I may have forgotten, or trying to relive certain experiences that I really enjoyed. In some cases I write them down, but for the most part these are memories that are just mine. They're memories that I enjoy. One such memory that I searched for, it took me a long time to find it. In fact, it took me until the age of 36 until I found what this memory was. This memory was my first memory. And it's an interesting conversation to have with anyone to find out what their first memory was. I had all of early ones. I remember, I was probably around 4. I remember whenever a boy stepped on a nail and it stuck up through his shoe into his foot. That looked really painful. I remember nearly drowning, or at least I thought I was nearly drowning, whenever I missed the edge of a pool and I went under the water. And the girl sitting on the edge looked at me like I was crazy a little bit. I remember being embarrassed to go to the swimming pool because I had a rip in my shorts and I was afraid people would see my bottom. But there was one memory I couldn't account for. I didn't understand why I had this memory or where it took place. I remember being afraid my father was going to die. My mom was holding my hand, and then my brother's hand on the other side of her, and she told us not to get too close to the water. The water was called a moat. We were standing on a drawbridge. She also told us that in the water there were alligators. Now, it seems like a sort of a fictional kind of story because it seems such an odd memory to have, especially growing up in Florida. Where are there castles with moats and alligators in them? When I was 36, my wife and I, with our son, moved from Thailand to Savannah, Georgia. And one day we wanted to do some touristy kind of things, so we went out to Fort Pulaski. When you get to Fort Pulaski, there's of course the parking lot that leads to the museum building, and then through there you go over a small bridge where there's a moat, and then there are these small hills, and you go around through the hills, and there you see a drawbridge with a moat. And sure enough, even the day that we were there when I was 36, there were alligators in the moat. I couldn't believe it. I'm looking at the situation thinking, wait a minute, I think this is my earliest memory. This is incredible. So I walked to the very spot where I remembered my mom's warning, and I stood there again, and I looked off to the side, and there was the little walk area that my father had taken when I was only 3 years old. He had taken this walk area along the moat to go see what was behind the hills. I remember being afraid my father was going to die, and I wanted to go after him. I thought he would never come back. He did, in case you're worried. My father did come back, but that was my earliest memory. Now, what's interesting about memories is that memories can be individual. They can be particular to your experience. And until I share my memory with you, it's just my memory alone. But now that I've shared the memory, this sort of knowledge of my experience has become shared rather than individual. Memory, I think, is something that's connected very highly to a person's identity. Your sense of self, your sense of who you are, is based in part upon what you remember about your history, where you've come from, what kind of experiences you've had, the things that have happened to you that shape you, that make you who you are. So holding on to memory, for me, is a matter of holding on to my sense of who I am, my identity. I have 2 other memories I'll share with you that not many other people know. Both of them happened while I was by myself. When I was a boy, I liked to fix my bicycles. If they would break, I would do it myself and I would fix it. And I remember fixing my bicycle one day, feeling confident I'd done a good job. I hopped on the bike and started riding the bike down the road. As I stood up the pedal to go really fast, the left pedal broke off. The moment it broke off, I slammed on into the seat. When that happened, the steering bar actually came out. And for a moment there, I was looking over the steering bar. It was in my hand. I was balanced. The wheel, I was no longer in control of, wobbled gently and then suddenly slammed to the side, pitching me over the edge, and I scraped my hands and my knee. Now it is a shared experience. The other one perhaps illustrates some of the foolishness of childhood, which I certainly hope I've outgrown. In my garage, I discovered in my father's tool case a bullet. Actually, multiple bullets. One of them was a 12-gauge shotgun shell, and I found that if you kind of wedged a screwdriver in the folded end, you could simply empty its contents out, which was really cool because you get these little ball bearings you could look at. And there's also this black powder, and since I'd watched cartoons, I knew what that black powder did. So naturally, what did I do? I lit it on fire. And it was really neat because it kind of hissed and smoked and this black smoke going up. It was so much fun I wanted to do it again. So after I'd used up all the shotgun shells, the only ones left were for a .22 rifle, and these are entirely encased bullets in metal. And I found getting them open was very difficult, in fact, frustrating. I'm in the garage alone, and I'm using a screwdriver to try to pry it at the little ledge, and then I grabbed a vise, and I put it into the vise, and I held it closed and grabbed pliers to pull the thing off. Nothing could get that bullet open. I'm trying so hard. I finally get so frustrated, I grab a hammer. You see where this is going, don't you? I grabbed a hammer, I put it on the ground, and I started hammering it, banging it, and as you would expect, it did explode. I did not die. The bullet actually launched and hit my neighbor's garage door, and I thought my face was covered in black soot, so I hid in the woods for a little while until I eventually went home to see that my face was fine. You can see I want to keep this story a secret. I've never told my parents, so thankfully they'll never find out, right? So memory shapes us in an interesting way as we look back on our lives, in some sense about where we're going for the future. So I can remember my life, but there's a lot about my life that I don't remember. Think back, though, for my own father, because my father and mother both shaped me to make me who I am. And I know some of my parents' lives. I know bits of it. But if I go to my grandfather, I know even less of his life. And my grandmother, she died when my father was just born. I only know one thing about her. I know what she looks like whenever she's been put into a coffin. But then go back a generation after that, and I feel as though the further back you go, the less we remember about anyone who came before us. Think for yourself. How many stories can you tell about your great-grandparents? Remember, there'll be 8 of them. They lived full lives, and in some sense, they contributed to your being here now, because they gave birth to someone who gave birth to someone, and eventually they gave birth to you. My father was not raised by his grandfather. He was raised by this couple, Leon and Cami Dean. This is my Aunt Cami. She's my great aunt, and she was raised as one of 13 children that my great-grandfather and great-grandmother bore. The guy in the front is their son. This picture was taken in 1943 when he joined the Navy. And as you might know, 1943 was during World War II. He was going off to join the war effort. And next to him is his sister. The house behind them is a 2-room wooden structure, probably built by them, and it's covered actually with wooden shingles that they would have made themselves as well. Even in the 1950s, this couple worked on their farm with no mechanized help. Their farm was run by a mule by the name of Emma. Some of what I just told you I know because my father has told me. But a bit of what I've just told you happened because of what I believe is going to cause a revolution in memory. This picture was taken in 1943. So where has it been since then? Probably in someone's photo album, maybe in a desk. How do I have it now? That's where I think things get really interesting. The internet. And in this case, specifically, Facebook. This picture was scanned by one of their grandchildren. And then it was posted on Facebook. And since my father is friends with those cousins, he then ended up in his feed as well. And when it ended up in his feed, it meant it was in my feed as well, and I could see this picture. I had never seen it before. In fact, I saw this picture for the first time about a year ago. I was so excited. I was like, I never knew that this guy was in the Navy, that he was actually part of World War II. That was really exciting for me to see that. So then what happens with Facebook is when people post pictures like that, it just doesn't go up there static. Because it's shared, it becomes shared memory. And what happens then, you see on the side over there, the large blocks of text are comments and questions from my sister and brother asking my father about it. They wanted to know if this couple was particularly happy, because in the picture, my Uncle Leon and Aunt Cami looked very happy, and they were very happy. They also want to know about the house behind it. Those details I've already given you, but I got them from Facebook. So somehow, we're able to build our lost memories. Our lost memories will be able to be recovered. This is really exciting for me, someone who is fascinated by our histories just so much. But also I think this plays a role in the development of our identities and the kind of people that we are. Here's some other examples of what I'm talking about. I didn't see this picture again until about a year ago or so. The same person who scanned the other picture scanned this one as well, John Scoggins. My father is the boy in the back right. They're standing in front of a tree that they planted in the front yard of my Aunt Cammie's house. These are his cousins. What followed from here was a long discussion about their experiences and their personalities and just remembering sort of what it was like in that time period. So here you see in Facebook the comments that were being developed on the side from that time period. This was, I think, 1956. But it's also happening to me. And the people who design Facebook and work with Facebook realize just how much people enjoy their own memories. And so they've started doing this thing where you could see where you were so many years ago from your posts. These feeds can come back to you, or you can see like in the past from today, and you can enjoy those. This picture was posted by Raul Mosley. When I showed this picture to one of my students, he commented that I must be the guy on the left because of the large forehead. Actually, I'm the guy on the right. Look at that full head of hair, just barely held down by that hat, right? So I could look back and remember, those are the days when I had a full head of hair. How wonderful that was. I didn't remember this moment because since the picture was taken by someone else, I never got to see it. The person never shared it. But now they've shared it. Now I can enjoy the photo and remember my freshman year at university. My friend Raul wasn't the only one to do this. My friend Paul Carlson also did it. We went on this trip to New York City, eventually ended up on the Jersey Shore, and this is a photograph that someone took of me putting my head against the pole. I have no idea why. I don't remember. Paul was doing the same thing. Maybe we were just trying to be odd or different or something like that in that moment. But it isn't just about the past that we're recovering. There's a way in which we're actually building new memory that looks forward. And this is where I think the revolution of social media is going to benefit the future generations in ways that we cannot really anticipate. Here's another example. There's my son. This came up as my memory on Facebook from 4 years ago. And it's exciting for me to look back on my son and think, he was such a little boy then, and now he's growing up. I can feel nostalgic, and then maybe I'll go over and give him a random hug, and he'll wonder what's going on. And I'll look at him and I'll say, it's Facebook. Now, I need to clarify an important difference here now between my son, my student's generation, and the people who are my age. Immigrants versus natives is what is referred to when someone is new to technology or entering technology versus someone who is native within it. So people my age grew up with rotary telephones, pre-cell phones, when we actually wrote letters and mailed them to one another. People don't do that quite the same way anymore because we have cell phones. Even right now, I can guarantee you there are probably people in the back of this room checking their feeds, right? Because they want to see what the latest news is and see what's going on. These are people who are native to the technology. They're the ones who are growing up in it. And as a result, they will use the technology differently. For example, the selfie. This young lady is in Bangkok, Thailand, and she is taking a picture of herself when she goes to a temple. I thought this was a really funny mix between internet technology and religious experience, right? She wants to record the fact that she is here at the temple at New Year's. And so she took a picture. But note also, I'm taking a picture of her taking a picture of herself. So there's another layer of humor in that one. I try to get on it a little bit too as well. I'm trying to capture important moments of my life. In this case, I'm experiencing my last masala chai tea before I leave Nepal. It was a wonderful trip. I went there with students, and I wanted to remember that moment, so I took a photograph of it. And this is what instant photographs and instant posting can allow us. We can, in the spur of the moment, record a moment, and that way we can hold on to it for the years to come. So my big question at this point is, what will we remember about our lives? I remember so little about my great-grandparents, so little about my Aunt Cammie. I have a few scattered photographs and stories from my father. But imagine what it's like for people today. When you look at how many times we take pictures of ourselves, our lives, our experiences, how much are we going to remember? We might remember things such as important birthdays or holidays when families come together and people do things as a group. We're going to remember the meal we ate. We do take pictures of our food, don't we? We think, wow, that's a delicious meal. I'm going to capture it before I eat it. That way afterward, I can remember how good it was. Or even special drinks that we have. Or even as the internet shows us some of the irrelevancy of parts of our lives, we might remember kittens. What then is the net effect of having so many memories? If you have children, think about their lives. They're already beginning to document their experiences on social media. They're already putting their lives into that medium to be recorded and remembered for the years to come. Here's an example from a friend of mine. Her name is Leisha. I worked with her for 3 years in a school in Korea. And in the last year or so, she gave birth to this cute boy. And one of the fun things about having Facebook is I get to see pictures of her boy growing up. I get to see her enjoying her child and the places they go and the things they do. But this boy, he's already into the internet revolution. He's already on social media. What will his memory be like? What will his identity be like? His sense of self? What will it be like for him when he reaches my age of 46? He will have so much life to look back upon. Then what will happen for his children? Or his children's children? How much will they remember about their lives? The effect, I don't know, because that piece of the future has not yet been written. Thank you.